The drama surrounding Caitlin Clark's offseason didn't begin with a game, a highlight, or a press conference. It started with a single tweet. One that spread like wildfire across social media in less than an hour. A sports insider claimed that Caitlin Clark, the rookie phenom who had already dominated headlines all year, had quietly signed a new off-season contract worth six figures. Not with the WNBA. Not even with one of her sponsors. But with a major private organization for an exclusive series of speaking appearances. At first, fans thought it was just a rumor. The idea that a first-year player could pull in that kind of money outside of basketball seemed almost unbelievable. But within hours, screenshots began to circulate. Internal memos, event listings, even promotional materials, confirming that Caitlin Clark would headline a high-profile speaking engagement in New York on October 29th. The details were stunning. The event, hosted by the Long Island Association, listed Caitlin as the featured guest in a moderated conversation about leadership, performance, and cultural impact. The price tag? Reportedly over $100,000 for a single session. The moment that figure hit social media, the entire WNBA seemed to freeze. Executives scrambled, players whispered, and fans erupted. Because if those numbers were real, it meant that one rookie was now earning more in a single afternoon than some of her veteran counterparts made across an entire season. What began as an innocent leak had suddenly exposed something much bigger. The fragile balance of power inside the WNBA. Behind the scenes, panic was spreading. Insiders said calls were made between the commissioner's office and key sponsors within minutes of the leak. The issue wasn't that Caitlin Clark had landed another deal. It was that she had done it on her own, without league oversight, without their approval, and worst of all, without their control. For years, the WNBA had built its identity around unity, equality, and team representation. But Caitlin's contract shattered that illusion overnight. She wasn't playing by the league's rules anymore. She was rewriting them. Caitlin Clark's influence had always been different. From the moment she entered the league, her name became a magnet for attention. Ticket sales soared, broadcast ratings broke records, and merchandise featuring her numbers sold out in hours. Every game she played turned into an event. Every appearance, a headline. For the WNBA, she wasn't just a player, she was a phenomenon. Yet that same star power that elevated the league also became its biggest threat. Because the moment she started making moves outside their jurisdiction, it exposed just how dependent the WNBA had become on one player's fame. When the leak first broke, Caitlin didn't say a word. There were no tweets, no statements, no attempts to clarify the rumors. Her camp stayed completely silent, choosing composure over chaos. That silence only fueled speculation. Some fans called her a trailblazer, a symbol of independence in a system that had long restricted women athletes from capitalizing on their worth. Others accused her of overshadowing her peers and creating division inside the locker room. But whether people loved her or hated her, everyone was talking about her, and in today's media landscape, that's the ultimate form of power. As the story grew, so did the tension. Inside WNBA offices, the mood turned frantic. Executives held emergency meetings to assess the fallout. How could one rookie outmaneuver an entire league? How could the WNBA justify its strict salary caps and financial restrictions when Caitlin was earning six figures per appearance? The questions were uncomfortable, and the answers even worse. It wasn't just about money anymore, it was about control. League insiders claimed that Commissioner Kathy Engelbert was furious, not at Caitlin herself, but at the optics. The WNBA had spent years fighting for collective recognition, yet one player was now bigger than the brand itself. Every marketing strategy, every sponsorship plan, every headline was being swallowed by Caitlin Clark's name. She had become the league's best asset and biggest liability at the same time. Meanwhile, behind closed doors, the reaction from players was split. Some saw her success as a win for all women in sports, proof that the market was finally recognizing their value. Others saw it as a slap in the face. They had spent years grinding overseas just to make ends meet, and now a rookie was earning more in one speech than they did in a full season. "We built the foundation, and she's walking on marble floors," one frustrated veteran reportedly said. The bitterness was real, and social media only made it worse. Every post about Caitlin's deal went viral, while highlights from the WNBA Finals barely scraped attention. Fans flooded comment sections comparing her to other stars, calling her the face of women's basketball and labeling others irrelevant. Even players who congratulated her publicly faced scrutiny, as fans dissected every word, searching for hidden jealousy or resentment. What was once unity had turned into quiet rivalry. And still, Caitlin Clark said nothing. That silence became its own kind of message, a reminder that she didn't need to respond because she was operating on a level beyond the league's noise. She wasn't chasing validation. She was defining it. Inside the WNBA, the silence was unbearable. League PR officials debated whether to release a statement acknowledging the contract. Some argued it would show support for their star player. Others warned it would only validate the leak and make the league look powerless. In the end, they chose silence, hoping the storm would pass. But silence in the social media era is like gasoline. It only makes the fire burn hotter. Sports networks seized the moment. ESPN, Fox Sports, and dozens of independent podcasts turned Caitlin's contract into the story of the week. Analysts debated whether her independent success was good or bad for the league. Some said she was single-handedly elevating women's basketball to new heights. Others argued that her growing celebrity was destabilizing the balance of the sport. By the next morning, #Caitlin Clark contract was trending across every major platform, and the WNBA's carefully crafted image was in shambles. What the league didn't realize was that Caitlin's calm was strategic. She wasn't reacting because she didn't have to. Every day she stayed silent, her stock rose higher. Sponsors loved it. Brands saw her poise as professionalism, her restraint as strength. Her silence made her mysterious, and her mystery made her marketable. Deals began pouring in. Companies lined up to secure her for speaking appearances, endorsements, and private engagements. Caitlin Clark had turned controversy into currency, and the WNBA could only watch. Behind the scenes, executives started to realize a painful truth. They had lost control of the narrative. Caitlin Clark wasn't just representing the league, she was defining it. Fans weren't following the WNBA anymore. They were following Caitlin. Every camera, every microphone, every media outlet was pointed in her direction. The balance of power had shifted from the commissioner's office to a single player, and no amount of PR spin could change that. For years, the WNBA had operated under a tightly controlled structure. Players' off-court activities were monitored, sponsorships approved, and messaging unified. But Caitlin's leak exposed how outdated that system had become. She wasn't bound by the old rules. She didn't need permission to succeed. And that realization sent shockwaves through the league. The panic turned inward. Some officials reportedly suggested introducing new guidelines requiring players to disclose off-season contracts. Others warned that such a move would backfire, painting the league as jealous and controlling. Sponsors were already nervous. They wanted Caitlin's reach, not the league's red tape. The more the WNBA tried to contain her, the more fans pushed back. "You should be thanking her, not policing her," one viral post read. Even media insiders began hinting that networks were being told to tone down coverage of the leak to protect the league's image. That only made things worse. Fans accused the WNBA of media manipulation and hypocrisy. The optics were terrible. While the league preached empowerment, it seemed threatened by the very success story it should have been celebrating. Meanwhile, Caitlin's first speaking event sold out in under 48 hours. Tickets were gone, seats filled, and sponsors lined up to attach their names to her appearance. The media treated it like a championship game. Outside the New York venue, cameras flashed and fans gathered, cheering as if it were game night. Inside, Caitlin took the stage, not as a rookie under contract, but as a brand in complete command of her destiny. Her speech wasn't about the controversy. It was about growth, focus, and leadership. But every word carried a deeper message, that she didn't need the league to define her value. By the time she finished, the entire room was on its feet. Even critics who once questioned her hype were applauding. The standing ovation lasted minutes. Back at league headquarters, the silence was heavy. Executives watched the live stream and realized they had lost the narrative completely. Caitlin had taken what could have been a PR disaster and turned it into a masterclass in control. She had transformed the leak into empowerment. Without saying a word, she had shown the entire sports world that she didn't need the WNBA to validate her success. The WNBA needed her to validate theirs. In the days that followed, a shift began. Players who once felt jealousy started to see opportunity. Some began negotiating their own side deals, inspired by Caitlyn's blueprint. Coaches quietly admitted that her success had done more to grow women's basketball than any marketing campaign in history. For years, the WNBA had struggled to break into mainstream conversation. Caitlin Clark had done it overnight. Still, the league's leadership wasn't celebrating. To them, this wasn't a victory. It was a warning. Caitlin Clark had proven that a player could exist beyond their system, that the WNBA no longer held full control over its stars. And that terrified them. For decades, leagues have defined players. But Caitlin had flipped that equation. She had become bigger than the game itself. The power dynamic had shifted, permanently. And as much as the WNBA tried to adapt, they were now reacting to her, not the other way around. The question was no longer how to market Caitlin Clark. It was how to keep up with her. By the end of that week, one thing was clear. Caitlin Clark wasn't just the face of the WNBA, she was its gravitational center. Every conversation, every headline, every business move seemed to orbit around her name. She wasn't seeking attention. Attention was seeking her. Her silence, her poise, her confidence, they all combined into a brand of power that no league executive could manufacture. She had rewritten the playbook on what it means to be a modern athlete. She wasn't just competing on the court, she was building an empire off it. And the WNBA, for all its pride and tradition, was now forced to follow her lead. October 29th wasn't just the day of a speaking event, it was the moment a new era began. Caitlin Clark walked off that stage smiling, waving to fans, surrounded by flashing cameras. It wasn't a victory lap. It was a declaration. She didn't just play in the WNBA anymore. She was the WNBA. Her leaked contract had become more than a story. It was a shift in the balance of power. The league could adapt to her new standard, or risk being left behind. And judging by how fast the world was moving around Caitlin Clark, the WNBA's time to catch up was already running out. Because this wasn't just about a contract anymore. It was about legacy. Caitlin Clark had proven that you don't need permission to be powerful. You just need the courage to own your story, and the patience to let the world catch up. And as the cameras faded and the headlines rolled on, one truth remained unshakable. The WNBA could try to control the narrative, but Caitlin Clark had already written the next chapter. A chapter that begins not with a press release or a commissioner's statement, but with one simple fact. The league isn't leading her story anymore. She's leading theirs.